January 31st, 1943. Dawn seeps over the frozen ruins of Stalingrad. The sky is a pale, exhausted gray, the kind that offers no warmth and no promise. Snow drifts through the skeletal remains of factories and apartment blocks, settling on burned-out tanks and the stiff shapes of men who will never move again. Somewhere in the distance, artillery thuds once, then stops. Silence follows, a terrible, unfamiliar silence. In a shallow trench near the Volga's western bank, a German infantryman tightens his scarf with hands that no longer feel like his own. His breath comes out in short, brittle clouds. Around him, men shift awkwardly, boots frozen to the ground, eyes sunken, faces hollow. No one speaks. They already know what the silence means. The fighting is over. A red flare arcs into the sky, then another. From the smoke and rubble ahead, figures begin to emerge. Dark coats, fur hats, rifles held low but ready. Soviet soldiers, real ones this time, not phantoms born of hunger and frostbite, not rumors whispered during the long nights in cellars and basements. This is surrender. You can almost feel the moment break inside them. Months of endurance snap at once. Rifles are lowered, helmets fall into the snow. A few men weep openly, the sound thin and weak like injured animals. Others stare straight ahead, jaws clenched, trying not to think about what comes next. They have heard stories. Everyone has. The Eastern Front has its own mythology, traded in murmurs between shell bursts, of prisoners shot on the spot, of revenge for burned villages, of no mercy for invaders. German propaganda officers had warned them endlessly. Bolshevik savagery, they called it. Better to fight to the last bullet, better to die where you stand. But hunger changes things. So does cold. So does the simple fact that there is nothing left to fight with. When the Soviets reach the trench line, they shout commands in sharp, barking syllables. Hands up, move, faster. One soldier hesitates, too slow to understand. A rifle butt slams into his shoulder, not to kill him, just enough to make the point. The column begins to form. Thousands of German soldiers, once the pride of the 6th Army, are herded together in the open snow. Officers and enlisted men alike, generals and privates sharing the same exhausted shuffle. The great encirclement that had promised glory now funnels them into a narrow human river flowing east. At first, there is a strange sense of relief. No more shelling, no more orders that lead to nowhere, no more watching comrades disappear into white drifts and shattered walls. Some even dare to believe the worst is over, that captivity, however harsh, must be better than what Stalingrad has become. A young corporal whispers to the man beside him, "They'll feed us now, they have to. The war's laws." The other man doesn't answer. The march begins. They move past wrecked tanks half buried in ice, past shattered aircraft wings and frozen supply trucks that never made it through. Soviet guards walk alongside, faces unreadable, eyes scanning for anyone who might try to fall out of line. And men do fall. At first, it's subtle. A stumble, a pause to catch breath, a man sinking to one knee, promising he'll stand back up in just a second. The guards shout. The column keeps moving. Those who can't keep pace are pulled aside. No one sees what happens to them. The temperature sinks lower as the day wears on. Boots split open, feet wrapped in rags bleed without anyone noticing. Hunger gnaws like an animal, sharp and constant. Some prisoners chew snow just to feel something in their mouths. Still, many cling to hope. They tell themselves the Soviets will send them to camps, that there will be bread, that doctors will come, that survival, though difficult, is possible. After all, they are soldiers now without weapons, prisoners, not enemies. But as night falls, the column stops, not at a camp, not at shelter, but in an open field. There are no tents, no fires, no food. Men huddle together instinctively, pressing close for warmth, breath mixing in the darkness. The wind cuts through greatcoats like knives. Somewhere, someone begins to cough. It doesn't stop. A German lieutenant looks towards the Soviet guards and realizes something that chills him more than the cold. No one is counting them. No one is writing names. No one seems concerned with who survives the night. And in that moment, standing beneath a merciless sky, it becomes clear that captivity here is not a pause in the war. It is simply the next battlefield. February 2nd, 1943, somewhere beyond the ruins of Stalingrad. Morning does not arrive so much as it seeps in, gray and merciless. The field where they slept is littered with shapes that do not rise when the guards shout. Men who had whispered through the night. Men who had sworn they would make it to morning. The living avert their eyes as they are ordered back into line. No one says their names. The march resumes. East. Always east. The road, if it can be called that, is a churned ribbon of ice, mud, and frozen blood. Each step is an argument between will and exhaustion. Boots scrape, breath rasps. A man near the front begins to sing softly, a German marching tune from another life. He forgets the words halfway through and laughs, then stops laughing just as suddenly. You can almost feel what they feel now, the strange shrinking of the world, hunger pushing everything else aside. Not fear, not patriotism, just the need to keep one foot moving ahead of the other. The guards do not rush them. That is the most unsettling part. They walk at a pace that seems manageable at first, slow, steady, but it never stops. When someone stumbles, a shout snaps through the column. When someone collapses completely, two guards step forward, pull him aside, and the march continues without pause. The prisoners begin to understand the rule. You fall out, you vanish. By midday, the temperature drops again. Wind scours the open steppe, stripping heat from skin and cloth alike. Men tear pages from prayer books, letters from home, anything they can stuff into boots or undershirts for insulation. One soldier rips the lining from his greatcoat and ties it around his feet with wire. An officer sees this and looks away. Rank means nothing here. A former general walks beside a private, both equally gray, equally hollow. The insignia that once commanded divisions is buried under frost and grime. No salutes, no titles, just bodies in motion. Hours pass. The road bends through villages that barely resemble villages anymore. Burned houses, collapsed roofs, frozen wells. Civilians watch from doorways. Old men, women wrapped in layers of patched cloth, children with eyes too old for their faces. Some stare with open hatred, others with something colder, indifference. A German soldier locks eyes with a young Russian boy. For a second, he expects a stone, a curse, something. Instead, the boy just watches, chewing a piece of bread. Slowly, deliberately. The soldier turns away, ashamed of how badly he wants it. There is no food for the column. Not that day, not the next. Men begin to drop more frequently now, not in dramatic collapses, but quiet ones. A man slows, another steps past him. The line stretches, compresses, moves on. The guards no longer need to intervene as often. The process has become self-regulating. At night, they stop wherever darkness finds them. No barracks, no huts, just snow and wind. Prisoners cluster together, forming trembling knots of humanity. Those in the center have a chance, those on the edges do not. Arguments break out over position, over space no wider than a shoulder, a shove here, a curse there. No one intervenes, everyone understands what is at stake. A medic tries to help a wounded man whose foot has gone black with frostbite. He has no tools, no bandages. He rubs the foot gently, murmuring nonsense words, knowing it will not help. By morning, the man does not wake. The medic moves on. Days blur together. The march becomes endless. Time dissolves. Some prisoners begin to hallucinate. They smell kitchens, hear church bells. One man swears he sees his wife standing at the edge of the road, waving. He breaks formation, calling her name. A single shot cracks the air. The column does not stop. By the end of the first week, the prisoners are no longer counting days. They're counting steps. 10 more, 20 more, anything to avoid thinking about distance. Then, one afternoon, the column crests a low rise and something new appears on the horizon. Barbed wire, wooden watchtowers, a camp. A murmur ripples through the survivors, weak but unmistakable. Relief, actual relief. Some men smile for the first time since surrender. A camp means food, shelter, records. It means survival has rules again. As they approach, the details sharpen. The wire sags, the towers are unmanned, smoke rises from a few crooked chimneys, thin and anemic. Figures move inside the perimeter, but slowly, listlessly. The gates open. Inside, prisoners already there stare back with hollow eyes. Their uniforms hang like sacks on frames that barely resemble men. No one greets them. No one asks where they came from. The new arrivals are herded inside and told to sit. Hours pass. No food comes, no medical inspection, no roll call. A German sergeant notices something then, something small but terrifying. There are no lists on the guardhouse wall, no posted camp numbers, no sign that anyone is tracking how many entered or how many leave. As night settles over the camp, the truth begins to press in. This place is not meant to hold them, it is meant to wear them down. And beyond the wire, the road continues east. The first night inside the camp is colder than the march. There is shelter of a kind, low wooden barracks, roofs bowed under snow, but they are already full. Men spill out onto the ground, pressed against walls, huddled beneath open sky. The wind finds every gap. It always does. A Soviet guard shouts an order. No one understands it. Another guard gestures sharply toward the barracks, then toward the open ground. The meaning becomes clear enough. You fit where you can. Inside one barrack, bodies are packed so tightly that turning over is impossible. Men sleep sitting upright, backs against one another, heads lolling forward like broken dolls. The smell is overwhelming. Sweat, rot, sickness, smoke from a stove that barely burns. Outside, those without space scrape shallow depressions in the snow and lie down anyway. Some do not get back up. Morning reveals them frozen in place, faces pale blue, expressions strangely peaceful. The living step around them as guards order everyone into a loose formation. At last, food. A cauldron is dragged into the yard. Steam rises, thin and promising. A ladle dips, splashes gray liquid into dented tins and cupped hands. It is more water than soup. A few floating grains, a strip of something that might once have been cabbage. Still, men drink it like nectar. For a moment, hope flickers again. That hope does not last. Days pass, then weeks. The camp remains the same, overcrowded, underfed, unmanaged, no medical care, no sanitation. Latrines overflow. Dysentery spreads quickly, carried by water, by hands, by the simple closeness of so many weakened bodies. Men begin to die not in ones or twos, but dozens at a time. Every morning, guards open the barrack doors and order prisoners to drag the dead outside. Bodies are stacked near the wire like firewood, stiff and light. Sometimes they remain there for days before being hauled away.
Sometimes they are never hauled away at all. You can almost feel the way death becomes ordinary. Names are forgotten, faces blur. A man you spoke to yesterday is gone today, and you cannot remember when you last heard his voice. Survival narrows the world to the size of your own hunger. The prisoners soon realize something else. This is not a camp, it is a transit point. Columns arrive, columns leave, always east, deeper into the Soviet interior. The guards rotate, the prisoners do not. Those deemed strong enough are marched out again. Those who are not, remain. Remaining is not a mercy. One afternoon, an older German major, former general staff, his education still evident in the way he speaks, collapses near the soup line. A younger soldier kneels to help him. The major grips his sleeve with surprising strength.
"They won't keep us here," he whispers. "They can't feed us. They're moving us to somewhere worse." The soldier wants to argue. He can't. The next morning, names are shouted, or rather numbers guessed at. Guards point, 100 men, 200. Those who can still walk are pulled into formation. Another march. This time, there is rail. Cattle cars stand waiting on a siding beyond the camp. Dark, windowless, already reeking of waste. Prisoners are shoved inside until there is no room to sit, barely room to breathe. Doors slam shut, bolts slide home. The train lurches forward. Inside, darkness presses in like a physical weight. The air grows foul almost immediately. Men pound on the walls, begging for water, for air. No one answers. Hours pass, then days. The train stops occasionally. Sometimes the doors open just long enough to throw in a bucket of snow. Men fight over it silently, lips blue, hands shaking. When the doors close again, the cold is almost a relief. When the train finally stops for good, the doors open onto a forest. Tall pines, deep snow, a wind that smells of resin and smoke. Another camp. This one has a name, though few will remember it. Here, work begins. Those who survive the selection are handed tools, axes, saws, picks. The task is simple: cut timber, dig earth, build roads that lead nowhere and everywhere, from dawn until dark, then darkness again. Rations shrink further. Men burn calories they do not have, bodies feeding on themselves. Cheekbones sharpen, eyes sink, wounds never heal. Frostbite returns, this time permanent. Some prisoners try to resist in small ways, working slower, hiding tools, sabotaging equipment. It does not matter. The work is not meant to be completed. It is meant to be endless. A former Wehrmacht sergeant begins to write in his head, composing letters to a wife he knows he will never see again. He recites them silently as he swings his axe, each imagined word a step away from madness. Others give up differently. They stop standing in line, stop lifting tools, stop caring when guards shout. These men are beaten at first. Later, they are simply ignored. They fade quickly. By the winter of 1943-44, the surviving Germans understand something with brutal clarity. This is not captivity. It is erasure. There will be no exchange, no release, no accounting. Many of them will not even die as soldiers, but as anonymous laborers in a land that will never remember their names. And still, the war grinds on. Far to the west, armies maneuver, conferences are held, plans are drawn. Here, in the forest camps of the east, none of that matters. Only one question remains, whispered between breaths in the freezing dark. How long can a man endure when survival itself has no purpose?
Winter tightens its grip.
not with sudden violence, but with patience. The camp wakes before dawn to the sound of a metal bar striking wood. Once, twice, again. The signal cuts through sleep like a blade. Men rise slowly, joints stiff, muscles screaming in protest. Some cannot stand without help. Some do not stand at all. The guards do not wait. Those who can move are pushed toward the work sites. The forest swallows them almost immediately. Dark trunks, drifting snow, the endless creak of frozen trees shifting in the wind. Axes rise and fall in weak, uneven rhythms. Each swing costs something precious. Energy, warmth, hope. You can almost feel the calculation happening inside every man. How much effort can I afford today? Work too hard and you burn calories you cannot replace. Work too little and you invite punishment. There is no correct answer. Food arrives once a day. A ladle of watery soup, a piece of bread so small it disappears in the hand. Men eat slowly, trying to make the moment last, knowing it will not be enough. Hunger becomes constant, no longer pain, just background noise, like the wind. With hunger comes change. Men begin to think differently. Morality bends first, then breaks. A dropped crust becomes a prize worth fighting over. Boots are traded for rations, coats for favors. Friendships thin, then vanish entirely. Survival has no room for loyalty. And yet, in the strangest moments, humanity flickers. A former schoolteacher from Munich shares half his bread with a boy barely old enough to shave. A Catholic priest whispers prayers for men who no longer believe in anything at all. A doctor continues to examine the sick, though he has no medicine and knows the outcome before he begins. These small acts matter. They just don't change the ending. Illness spreads unchecked. Typhus, dysentery, scurvy. Men lose teeth, gums bleed, legs swell. A cough becomes a death sentence. Those too weak to work are removed from the barracks and placed in a separate hut. No one calls it what it is, but everyone knows. The dead are buried in shallow pits beyond the tree line. Sometimes there is a marker, often there is not. Snow covers everything eventually, smoothing the ground as if nothing ever happened there. Months pass. Then, quietly, something shifts. Rumors reach the camp on the boots of new guards and newly arrived prisoners. Whispers of defeat at Kursk, of Allied landings in Italy, of bombers over German cities. The war is turning. For the first time in years, Germany is retreating everywhere. The news does not bring joy, it brings dread. Because if the war ends, what happens to men like them? Some believe they will be released, repatriated, sent home to rebuild lives that barely exist anymore. Others are not so sure. They have learned what the system does to inconvenient people. One night, a Soviet political officer addresses a group of prisoners through an interpreter. His speech is calm, controlled. He speaks of guilt, of responsibility, of rebuilding what Germany destroyed. You will work, he says, until your debt is paid. No one asks how much the debt is. The answer becomes clear soon enough. As the front moves west, the camps do not empty, they grow. New prisoners arrive, men captured in Poland, in Hungary, in East Prussia. They bring stories of chaos, of civilians fleeing, of entire regions collapsing. They also bring something else: confirmation. Few prisoners from earlier transports are ever seen again. A German lieutenant who has survived nearly 2 years in captivity begins to keep count in his head. How many from his original group are still alive? The number shrinks steadily, then rapidly. By early 1945, he can count them on one hand. And then the war ends, or at least it ends for the world beyond the wire. May 1945 arrives without ceremony, no announcement, no celebration.
The guards behave the same. Work continues the next morning, and the morning after that. Victory, it turns out, changes nothing here. Some prisoners realize then that survival itself has become the punishment, that they are not being held for negotiation or justice, but as labor to be consumed until nothing remains. A man who once dreamed of returning home now dreams only of rest, not freedom, just rest. And somewhere deep inside, a terrifying thought takes shape. What if dying here is easier than enduring another year?
But forgetting is impossible. Former prisoners wake screaming decades later, soaked in sweat, convinced they are back in the forest, back in the snow, back on the march east. Some cannot tolerate hunger of any kind. Others hoard food instinctively, hiding bread in drawers long after scarcity is ended. They are alive. But survival has a cost. Historians will later estimate that of the millions of German soldiers captured by the Soviet Union, hundreds of thousands never returned. Some died in the first marches, others in camps whose names were never recorded. Others still vanished into labor projects so remote that no records survive them. They are buried beneath forests, beneath roads, beneath time itself. No monuments mark their graves, no ceremonies recall their passing. Only fragments remain. Diary entries smuggled home, whispered memories, numbers that never quite add up. And perhaps that is the final cruelty. Not just death, but disappearance. Erased not only from the battlefield, but from memory. For the men who survived, the war never truly ended. It simply followed them home, settling quietly into their bones, waiting for the cold, waiting for hunger, waiting for the night.